All right, so I'm very, very excited about this session today. I'm Lindsay Teague with Cadent. I wanted to toss it both to Lara and Leslie just to have them introduce themselves, share a little bit about their roles within their organizations, and then we'll get right to it. Lara, want to go first?
She's in the game.
Hi, I'm Lara. I'm the CMO and EVP of Marketing at Kansas City Chiefs. So I oversee all parts of marketing, from brand strategy, content, social, digital, our community team, and also our non-for-profit Home Family Foundation. And I oversee it both from the U.S. perspective as well as our international markets that we have now in Europe and Mexico.
Very exciting. I'm personally excited to be here with this team, with Lindsay and Lara, because what a cool powerhouse L group. But I'm Leslie. I look after a cool and busy agenda at Unilever on our nutrition ice cream business. So if you know Hellmann's, we'll talk about today. Nor we have wonderful brands like Ben & Jerry's and Breyers and Klondike Popsicle. You were 20 and I know. It's like a song. And I get to do all the cool stuff. So media partnerships, influencer, creative, content, comm strategy, and then the digital ecosystem. So how do we reach our consumers with a great website experience and make sure the data is safe and our privacy compliance is there. So the digital ecosystem, a little bit of retail media. I know that's not the topic today, but everyone's favorite topic is of late. But we get to do all the cool digital comm stuff on those cool brands.
Thank you. So I wanted to set the stage. I think we can all acknowledge that it's been a tremendous year for women in marketing and media and entertainment. So I wanted to start with a few stats. Acknowledging that the Barbie movie acquired over $1 billion in box office sales. Taylor Swift, we got to her right away. And Beyonce both sold out every city that they toured in. The Eras movie made almost $93 million in its domestic box office opening weekend. And as it pertains to today, the female fan base of the NFL actually represents 47% of its fan base. Shout out to the Chiefs. Lara shared that it's actually 50% in Kansas City, so they are over average. And so to the extent of that, for both of you, how have you sort of tapped into this sort of tremendous fan base and surge and sort of female purchasing power on behalf of both of your brands or your organizations?
You go first.
Sure. I mean, it is a powerful moment to be here, and as a Green Bay Packer fan, make that clear. If you were here last year, I talked about the Packers, but truly, I grew up in Wisconsin where sports is a big part of life. It doesn't matter where you come from, what gender you are, you grow up loving Green Bay Packers. And so for me to see now, one, the Chiefs do something really powerful for women in sports and just sports in general, it's a really cool moment. And if I take that into my day job of selling mayonnaise and ice cream, gotta bring back tomato, people. 1 in 2 households in America has Hellmann's mayonnaise. And most households in America have one of my ice cream brands. We are everywhere. We are part of life. We are part of a mom and a woman's day, whether it be helping her make a meal, giving her a moment of happiness at the end of the day when maybe she's had a rough day because drop off at school didn't go great or she got a promotion at work. So for me, the fact that I can connect sports even stronger to that female powerhouse that I already know and love because of my brands, it's extra cool. And I'll talk later about Hellmann's and football and our love for sports. It's just a cool moment. And a lot of consumer brands do reach women, and it just gives us more opportunity to authentically reach these women. So super exciting for me, and 1 in 2 households has Hellmann's. So I hope you all take that fact home with you today.
Mine sure does.
No, I listen, I think it's fascinating to watch what has happened, certainly over the last, it feels like a year and a half. I think it was 6 months. I'm sure People Magazine has it somewhere. Listen, I think similar to Green Bay, Kansas City is a small town when you think about it. So I think we're about 30th out of 32 in terms of market size, and yet we're now the #1 fan base out of all, the #2 fan base out of all 32, and the #1 on many of the different social channels. And what we're finding, which is not really, in many ways, as women sitting up here, it's like not shocking, but I think what's shocking is that brands, and the Chiefs are a brand as much as they are a sports team, are starting to recognize the power of the female buyer, the female fan, the female consumer. We're seeing a lot more in terms of families engaging with sports, not only for the actual game and community, but everything around it. Obviously, the players are their own brands, and that's certainly starting to drive a lot of the reach as well. So I think we're trying to connect all the dots, and I think from the Chiefs' perspective, we really think about it as how do we bring Chiefs Kingdom to more fans, and if that means that our brand needs to stretch in different ways without losing who we are, we should and need to do that. And certainly we have these massive, while humble ambitions of becoming the world's team. There's no way to become the world's team if we don't acknowledge 50% of the world's consumers, which are, if not more, which are female. And so we've tried to do that, and we'll lean into it, talk about it a little bit too. We've tried to actually even pivot a lot of our messaging and campaign to creating ideas that attract a whole new audience, in this case female, like we did with playoffs, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
So certainly Gen Z and millennials are viewing sports more and more than they ever before, and I think particularly the social content surrounding game day and in-game. And so curious for you guys to share what's sort of been your approach to your influencer strategy this year, knowing that there's so much focus around, you know, the celebrity aspect of the game and certainly around all the social channels.
You want to talk?
Sure, I can go. I feel like we'll just
Should have planned this.
What's an influencer? Wow, if we'd done this panel 10 years ago, again, I feel like we're now in a world where I start off strategic planning sessions for the year with what is an influencer strategy for a brand, and just setting the tone of, you know, Hellmann's and Klondike and Ben & Jerry's, big brands that do and have done advertising in many different ways in the last 20 years. When we think about reaching consumers, it is through content creation, it is through influencer. And so for a brand like Hellmann's, it's reaching that younger consumer in a space that they want to be. I mean, most of marketing is pretty simple. Reach them where they are. And 3 times, or I say Gen Z will go and view social 3 to 4 times a 44-year-old woman. So I need to be reaching that woman or man, in this case we'll talk women, at a point that she's excited and she's engaged and she's either looking for entertainment or function. And Hellmann's can actually offer both. That we can give her entertainment, we can also give her recipes that seem on par for what she's doing. We're actually learning that that generation likes to cook. They're looking for resourceful ways to make things work for them. We also know, we'll talk in a little bit about food waste, they're much more interested in the world and making a difference, and they can do that with simple things like taking rotisserie chicken and adding Hellmann's and making it into dinner. So for me, influencer strategy, it's at the heart of everything we're doing. We're not doing anything crazy. We're bringing moments to consumers and moments that they have, and we're making it fun and functional. And again, I could talk all day about this topic, but it's fun. And I just always say to people that ask, well, what advice would you give? Don't overthink it. And it's okay to put a lot of content out there. Some of it's gonna work, some of it's not gonna work, and having a really good team to monetize and frankly just monitor what it looks like and then go with the good stuff and take down the bad stuff. And that's a really big part of how we tackle strategy, at least on Hellmann's.
Yeah, and I would add, you know, it's interesting, when I joined, I had come from Anheuser-Busch and L'Oreal and more traditional CPGs, and when I joined the league, and on one of my first days, my boss, the president, Donovan, talked about this ambition of becoming the world's team. You know, I was so used to kind of the more traditional ways of advertising, and I don't know if everyone knows this, but in the league, at least in the US, each club has a designated area of marketing, right? So Chiefs and we have a unique situation because we have 3 states versus most markets only have a very small perimeter, the beauty of living in the Midwest. We actually have a limit on where we can put paid advertising. And so when you think about it, the only way to grow the brand, or one of the ways to grow the brand, is certainly through influencers and earned media. And that seems so simple to your point when you say it out loud, but once you kind of recognize that unlock, it actually shifts your entire strategy, because we have limits, right? So you have to think about creative ideas, and I think we've done that over the last couple of years. The Chiefs didn't have a marketing team before I joined. It's really shifted the thinking on, yes, our hype content on our social channels is amazing, gives you goosebumps, but traditionally the people that are following our channels were avid fans. So when you start thinking about it as how do we create content that's going to reach new fans, again, some of the stuff we do with the playoffs, that's where we're really getting the pickup, and that's where we're seeing, you know, huge amounts of over the lap. And so again, other accelerators, but certainly huge amounts of fan growth coming from doing and working with influencers that have a national reach. That's kind of the workaround from a league perspective.
I just learned a new fact. That's really interesting.
So it's the beauty of influencers at the national level.
Leslie, you just touched on purpose-led marketing, and as we were prepping for this, we're like, we have so much to talk about. But I think what's unique about both of your brands is that you do both have a position to lead with purpose-led marketing, reducing waste in food, certainly across the Unilever portfolio, tying into sponsoring women's leagues and even brand partnerships with Kylie Kelsey. Talk a little bit about what sort of has driven, specifically for Hellmann's, your effort behind purpose-led marketing and how it ties to the female consumer.
Purpose can be tricky, and I'll start by that just to be provocative. It's not as simple as just doing good for the world. I think to really do it right, from brands that have been around for 50, 100, 150 years, it's real conversations with your consumers, and our mission around food waste started with a basic insight. Consumers want food to taste really good. Shocker, that's not actually a purpose insight, that's just a real insight. All of you out here, I hope you like good food. I hope you like good food at Super Bowl. I hope you like good food any day of the week. And so we knew, and we wanted to bring purpose into our DNA, and at Hellmann's we believe in a really good quality product. That's why if you look at our label, you'll see really good ingredients, and we stand by that. So when you take really good products, and then you think, well, what if you actually start to tell consumers that when you have leftovers in your fridge and you marry it with Hellmann's, it could make something even better that actually might make your life easy. That felt easy. I just told that story in 30 seconds, and I hope it all made sense. If it didn't, please tell me later. But we wanted to tell a story that was going to authentically connect with our consumer and be easy and insightful. It's based on an insight. You don't want to waste food, and you want good tasting food. It's that simple. And in the end, I think Hellmann's is a brand that will continue to tell that story. We're in year 5 of that story. We're in year 4 of telling it at Super Bowl. These things also take time, because I'm not going to stop telling you about all the great things Hellmann's does and how we make our products and how we have cage-free eggs. So the fact that that message sits within a lot of other Hellmann's messaging is a great, great win for me. And I really hope when you're all kind of reflecting on that purpose, you're thinking, wow, that does make sense, because that's our goal. We never want to make your life more difficult. We want to make it easier. And if we can give you something that makes the world a little bit better, that makes you feel a little bit better at the end of the day, then we did something right. So I tell everybody, go take that rotisserie chicken and blend it with Hellmann's and add some veggies and bake it, and I promise you it's a really good recipe. So for us, purpose is simple. And when we think about some of the other brands in our portfolio, like Dove, it's really hard to be Hellmann's when you're in the Dove family, because you see Dove as the big sister going, we got purpose, we got this. And I think but in the same way, it's an amazing inspiration, because Dove has been leaning into that message for almost 20 years, and that's why it works. So Hellmann's will continue on that journey and learn from its big sister Dove, but it comes down to don't overthink it and use human insight, because purpose is best when it comes from that place.
And Lara, for you, I think one of the things I'm personally invested in, and we talked a little bit about this, is sort of the league's focus on female flag football and sort of cultivating these experiences for the female fan. Would you want to share with us a little bit about sort of your approach in supporting that initiative?
Yeah, and it's interesting, when you come from having a physical product like Hellmann's or bar soap or beer, mascara, or hair products, and then you move into a world of something like the Chiefs where it's intangible, it also starts shifting your thinking in terms of what is purpose, right? And for us, a lot of the purpose is really around uniting our community, and that community has certainly grown and continues to grow. But if you think about it, most of the teams, like the Packers, like the Bills, they're hometown teams that have now become these kind of global darlings in many ways. And connecting with our fans and connecting with the local community is really important, and it's certainly important when you're winning, obviously, but it's even more important in many ways when you're not, right? How are we continuing to give back? And one of the initiatives that has been really important to us, as important to the league as well, is making sure that young boys and girls are being active and playing in the sport, right? And the sense of being part of a team and being, understanding that something's bigger than yourself. And so flag football has been a huge initiative that I'm sure many of you guys have heard about via the league, but it is something locally that we're very committed to. We actually, over the next year and a half, will be making some big announcements on how we'll be investing even further in girls flag football. And we're actually having employees. We have a young woman who runs our flag football program. She was in ticket sales for a long time, and she was great, but that's not was her passion. She actually was a college flag football player and now runs her program. And so what you're seeing too is that it's giving a pipeline to also women to get into sports, right? And I think that certainly opens up a whole new opportunity of there's a lot of ways to be part of sports later in life, whether or not you're a professional athlete. And so yeah, it's a huge initiative, and it's fun to see the girls playing, and certainly having the co-ed teams, which you don't find in that many other places in terms of sports.
Thank you. So we're going to shift gears a little bit to the celebrity effect, we'll call it. Certainly, I think in any of the trades that we've all been reading, we understand sort of the larger social impact to the celebrity effect, and we're going to, in a little bit, share the creative for Hellmann's. But how have both of your organizations sort of reacted or shifted your strategies based on this really rabid celebrity fandom?
You gotta go first.
Yeah, I mean, Lara's is very unique, we know that.
My friendship breaks the fun and honor.
So first and foremost, we consider all famous friends, including Taylor Swift, fans of ours and fans of Chief Kingdom, and we have tried very, very intently and intentionally to make it feel like that, to be welcoming to famous friends in our kingdom, to want to come back, to feel like they're comfortable. Honestly, to not scare them away a little bit, which, and someone asked me one time, like, how much do you guys talk about it? I mean, we have conversations, like, should we post that in graphic, and do we make that line, or we were already going to make that comment about an Eras tour. Like, there's just so many. She played it at our stadium this summer, so there's a lot of navigation, but beyond just the obvious name, we try to integrate, again, celebrities in our perspective as fans, right? And we try to use them as influencers in that way. And we have a lot of ones that are wanting to create merch, right? That are wanting to, Heidi Gardner is a massive Chiefs fan. For anyone that doesn't know that, she was at the draft. So we try to find really authentic ways to integrate them, to not scare them off, hopefully, but certainly to celebrate them. And listen, like athletes, if they bring new fans into our doors, into our social channels, it's a win-win, win-win.
Quadruple win. So talent and celebrities from the brand side is interesting because it's always been a big part of how we talk to consumers, and I think it's evolved as influencers are becoming celebrities in their own right. Celebrities are, we were talking about this earlier, celebrities are creating their own brands, their own products. They're really taking what they believe in and much further than ever before, and it becomes actually a really interesting brand strategy of where do you want to play and what consumers / celebrities, because they're consumers too, are right on par with your brand. And then you also have a risk profile question, because we also know this is a very, very social world where things can be misconstrued. So for celebrities and Hellmann's, it's actually a huge part of what we do, and it's all about pop culture. A brand, I hope today, any brand wants to understand how can we best be engaged in conversations. Back to what I said earlier. Don't make consumers work hard. Take them to fun places. Everyone wants a laugh. I can tell you I won about 5 after my flight this morning. Just make it funny, and pop culture and celebrities are great ways to do that. And for Hellmann's, it's all about humor, mainly because we go and Super Bowl is our big moment of the year, and humor is the #1 reason people come to watch Super Bowl commercials. So you'll see our spots starring Kate McKinnon and Pete Davidson, and they are humor and comedians at the heart. SNL alum, truly it is in their DNA, and our spot, which you'll see, is really about loving them for what they are and not trying to make something funny for funny's sake, but taking advantage of the amazing brand equity that they have, that they built, and just blending it with the right spot and the right moment. And we think that's Hellmann's mayonnaise. But so for me, it's pop culture. It's how do you make your brand feel cool and relevant. And I think it's a fine line, because we also know that in the influencer world and the influencer celeb world, there are consumers that could see you kind of copping out of like, well, they just paid for that. And I think that is still where we are very careful about who and what we talk to. But in the end, we're also using influencers as an awareness channel, which means that even if it maybe feels like a paid ad, that may actually reach a consumer that we needed to reach. And we've done a lot of research on what that means. So I'm excited to show you the spot in a little bit, and I hope you see how pop culture and celebrities come to life for Hellmann's in that spot.
Long story short is we were building our playoffs campaign this year, which again, going back to the original point, we don't do any paid advertising whatsoever. One, because the rules, 2, just our budgets don't allow that. And so for the playoffs campaign this year, the whole concept was around acknowledging that for Chiefs fans, new and old, it's the best holiday season of the year, and in many ways it has the same rituals that going to a game has, right? The food is more gluttonous. The clothes are more ridiculous. We have a coach that kind of looks like Santa Claus. There's all these similarities in the Venn diagram. And one of the things amongst the kind of idea was what's more Christmas and what's more holiday than the low budget made for TV movie. And it was a spoof on those. And for those that don't know, Hallmark is actually a Kansas City based organization, which we don't currently have a relationship with, but who knows what may happen. And it's just a really great example of we were able to pull to the point of a lot of those guys are players. If you're not Chiefs fans, Mama Kelsey is obviously the one in there, but we found a way, and if anyone's a Hallmark fan, I don't know if anyone's, that's Tyler Hines, they call him Heimies, if you didn't know. Yeah, I guess that's them and Swifties. It's like the universes are just like colliding out of control. But it was a great example of creating something that was tongue-in-cheek, that got massive pickup completely organically and through earned media. We've had over 6.5 million views, again, with zero paid dollars, and really using our influencers and talent to do that. And it certainly has now created a lot of conversation of the comments are all really positive and are all, a lot of them from females and Hallmark fans, and a lot of people being like, is it going to become a real movie? So we shall see. Maybe. Sorry to cut into saying Hallmark, which is Hallmark.
Very inspiring. And I feel like you just auditioned to be Hallmark's partner. Saying. So that is for us a home run, and it's shown already. We've had it out for about 7 days, and we've blown out every other year Super Bowl from an impression lens, from a pickup lens, earned the conversation. It's the magic of the humor of Kate and Pete, a funny idea that really is not trying to overthink itself, right? A cat and mayonnaise. Just, okay, yeah. When we saw the brief, I'm like, okay, a cat and mayo. But it's all about the execution and not taking yourself too serious. And you see that food waste message is in it, but it's not the main focus, because we want you to have fun, we want you to laugh. And even a great example of that People magazine cover was another great media partnership where we wanted to be authentically with People. There's obviously a joke about Pete and his relationship history, which we thought, hey, Pete, a cat, cool, let's go there. And People magazine was willing to work with us on that. So just even a way we were able to tie in more of our media partners and really tell that story as authentically silly as we could. And then my last story on this, because I love it, there's a cat in the last scene. There's a stuffed cat. My son got to keep that stuffed cat, and he's taking it to daycare tomorrow, and he thinks his mom's going to be in the Super Bowl because I said, oh, this cat will be on TV, and then he thought that was me, and so our household's having a confusing moment about the stuffed cat. But
in 10 years, you'll tell
10 years, I'm like, that cat was in the Super Bowl. But just really, really fun, and thanks for laughing along, and hopefully you guys will see some cat things throughout Vegas if you're here for the next couple days. We are still on the Sphere occasionally, and we've got some other hidden cats throughout Vegas. As someone that doesn't like cats, I'm really leaning it.
Well, I think we're coming close to time, but I did have a few fun rapid fires. I mean, I think a little biased, but we favored NFL team. Chiefs.
Packers, Bills is a second.
Yeah, well, and I'm a Bills fan, so we did bond over being small market team fans.
We're 31, 32, and 30, like collectively.
We are.
Look at us.
I mean, come on, the best teams.
Favorite Taylor Swift song?
Go first. I have to.
I'm gonna say Karma, because now it's the Chiefs song.
I'm really probably Reputation.
Mm-hmm.
Just like a throwdown.
Yeah. Favorite Super Bowl commercial besides your Hellmann's or your Hellmann's?
So I have two. One is, I was a marketing kid in high school in the 90s, and my marketing high school teacher, that was the Budweiser era. So that sound is one of the reasons I went into marketing. So that's just memorable. And then also my grandfather was a farmer, so the Dodge Ram ads from like, I don't even know, was that 10 years ago? Playing on the humor and the emotion of, I think, just, I still watch that commercial every couple of years when I'm trying to inspire our teams and think about what that ad did emotionally. So I would say Dodge Rams and a little bit of Budweiser from the 90s.
I'll go, yeah, I will my time on Stellar 12 running marketing, and we got to work with Jeff Bridges and Sarah Jessica Parker on the ad, which was amazing, and actually gave birth to my son on the day we were filming. So I got to do it all. I got a video from Jeff Bridges saying like, Lara, baby, welcome to your, yeah, but I wasn't actually physically there. But
I was gonna say,
it's
that
my
is
favorite
quite a story.
all time. Yeah.
What's yours, Lindsay?
Geez. Probably, I was gonna say the Clydesdales, like those are my favorite as well. Yeah. I did love the farmer's dog last year. Really.
Animals.
Pulls on the heartstrings.
All right, well, thank you so much, both of you.
We do have a
yeah.
few minutes left if
Great.
anyone wants to. Can we take a few questions here?
I'd like some fantasy advice afterwards.
Dawn and Dawn.
Hey, John Bond, how you doing? Recovering Ed guy here. Is it still true, as a friend of mine was on the board, that Ben & Jerry's is the only brand at Unilever that has its own independent board of directors? And if so, what's the importance for a kind of passion brand of really having separation from the brand management system where brand managers move around, right? Because the whole company is a culture, it's in the walls and it's separate. So kind of a two-part question.
I know Ben & Jerry's is a separate entity. I do not know if it's the only Unilever company, and that's way too serious of a question for Super Bowl. Feel free to grab me after. But Ben & Jerry's is one of our most loved brands, stands for culture, stands for truly landing the mission that Ben & Jerry's still stand for, and the company does. But happy to talk more, I gotta keep it light.
Just one little funny anecdote on that. They were kind of out of money, and Nestle was going to buy them. And this friend of mine, who was on the board, he sent a note out that said he made a bid on the company. Of course, he didn't have a nickel to his name. And then that delayed the process. And during that time period, because they hated Nestle, they made this deal with Unilever. And that was the deal. We're going to have our own separate board, do our Ben & Jerry thing. So anyway.
That was 2001.
Yeah.
We celebrate that day a lot.
Leslie, quick question. It's so hard to always predict what viewers are going to latch onto in these spots. And while you were showing that ad, I was like, oh shit, I want to follow this cat on Instagram. And I looked, and the cat does not have an Instagram account. So
Owner does.
Right. So have you guys thought about those kind of social extensions as well? It's so hard to predict, but like the virality of a concept like that can really spark.
It's a great question, and we're literally doing war rooming right now about, because part of it goes back to your point of where do you spend your energy? We actually have a huge thing with the NFL right now, not officially, but we are doing programs with Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans. We're talking to the Giants. We go into markets and to players that make sense for helmets. We're also doing a huge program with the SEC and Big Ten. So that's where our focus is. But when we see something like viral cat becoming viral, we quickly say, okay, how do we mobilize a team? What makes sense? So we're actually in the process of understanding, can we do more with the cat? Can we help make the cat even more famous? So stay tuned for more, but it's a great question, and truly we don't want to waste a ton of energy if it doesn't become big. And so we have kind of specialty teams set up for if something strikes gold, then we jump on the gold bandwagon. So watch out, more cats.
Well, I think if you somehow figure out how to get the cat into the suite with Taylor Swift, I think
I'd like to retire if that happens. Yeah. I have a connection now, so.
I'll just carry the cat.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I talk with clients about how fandom, especially for younger generations, has become a lot more fluid, and how like my 9-year-old son, case in point, he likes 5 teams because he's following players first. And I always tell him we're a New York Giants household, and he's like, "But Dad, I want to root for whatever." So I mean, you guys have been very fortunate to have a lot of continuity between Mahomes and Kelsey. But is that something you guys think about and talk about? In terms of like how do you reconcile how the younger generation is following players and athletes first, and how to combat that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. By the way, Josh and I worked together many moons ago at PhD at our first shop, or my first shop. Yeah, so we talk about it a lot actually, and what we're finding. So one of the things that we've shifted or we've implemented over the last 2 years is a much more family focus in terms of our marketing and our plans. Because what we have found is that a lot of times generationally it's not passing all the way through. I think we are in a very grateful position with the Chiefs, and that the Kansas City tie, I think the fact that it's a small town, again, like those markets, there is a different level of generational connection, perhaps. As someone that grew up in Connecticut, I didn't even have an NFL team growing up. It just wasn't even part of my world. So it has been a real focus to shift to the parents, because we know the parents will ultimately can have more influence on their kids. But it also is something that we also acknowledge, and when I was saying before that we're the number 2 team, we actually look at that in terms of first and secondary fans. So we were laughing when we were talking about the different teams. I am all about, if you want to make the Chiefs your second team, I am all about having you as the second team, because what we have found is that a lot of times, oftentimes the secondary fans are actually the ones that are more willing to spend on merch. They're more willing to spend on other experiences. They may not come to the game, right? They either might not live in Kansas City or be willing to spend the money, but they're willing to consume in a lot of other ways. So it is a huge focus of ours. And yeah, I get a lot of pictures from friends of like, I'm a Bills fan, and then his kids like got on a Holmes jersey or whatever. So yeah, we're trying. The kids definitely are our focus, and we get there through that way. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you so much. So give it up for Lara, Lindsay, Lindsay.